Next on AM 1480 WLEA, The Amy McManus Show.
Welcome to the Amy McManus Show on AM 1480 WLEA. I had to take my husband's truck up the hill tonight. I wasn't sure I was going to make it. Brian O'Neill, you like the snow? Oh, I'm not really a snow person. We had a snow day yesterday for the kids, and it's kind of cool. The kids get excited. I get to sleep in a little bit, but about 11 o'clock, I'm not liking the snow day. Not so much. Any moms out there can appreciate that. Some of the politicians are again using snow to do their jabs against each other, especially regarding man-made global warming. James Inhofe is at it again. He's asked the Obama administration to investigate what he calls the greatest scientific scandal of our generation. That is, the actions taken by this administration as well as the governments of the world to change what they call man-made global warming, otherwise known as climate change. He actually wants former Vice President Al Gore to be called back to the Senate to testify. He wants to ask him some questions. He says in Gore's science fiction movie, that's what he calls an inconvenient truth, every assertion has been rebutted, and he wants the former vice president to defend himself about his movie before going to Congress. Incidentally, in England, a British court ruled back in 2007 that any students who view the movie An Inconvenient Truth must also be required to view something that rebuts the supposed facts that are in An Inconvenient Truth. Interesting. More locally, I know many of you probably heard the Stony Brook Pool is closing. A lot of us are really disappointed about that. It seems like every time I look in the paper or watch the news, it always seems to be a cut that the everyday man is going to have to face the consequences for it. It's really frustrating. You get your school cuts and your park cuts and everything else. But New York State has 325 state agencies, 325. That does not even include the state senate and the state assembly and all of the people under them and the subdivisions and the budgets and everything else. And I haven't really seen anybody come out, whether the governor or otherwise, and say, we're just going to start eliminating some of these agencies. There's 3 different tax agencies, there's 3 different corrections agencies, there's 3 different mental health agencies. So I'd like to see some of these agencies just disappear rather than our parks. I will say this, an interesting note, when we hear about school aid cuts, the governor said he wants $1.1 billion cut from state aid to schools. The New York State United Teachers Union is spending $1.5 million of those union dues in a TV advertising campaign against this. And that $1.1 billion, it does seem huge and astronomical, but you got to remember this, that only accounts for 5% of school aid, 5%. And anybody who's walked into a school, you take a look around, even in your own home, surely a 5% cut is not going to be harmful. Another thing that may be harmful, though, as well, he's also proposing to increase fees for grocery stores that sell alcohol as well as liquor stores. He says that will bring in $300 million over the next 2 years, $150 million more than what he first wanted. A lobbying group called The Last Store on Main Street claims that 1,000 of the 2,700 wine and liquor stores and grocery stores that sell alcohol could close if this fee passes. Speaking of spending, we are also federally going to be building a new British embassy in England. We have a $12 trillion debt, but apparently we can find some spare change to spend $1 billion to build ourselves a new British embassy in England. Also back in New York, as many of you know, Patterson is not running. This big story finally broke of the New York Times. Brian, do you think was this the big New York Times story that they were supposed to run several weeks ago? Or
that's what everybody's thinking.
Yeah, because it sounds like they were waiting on more proof, waiting on a bit more evidence, and then they decided to just run with it. And what they ran with was that they're making this presumption that the governor somehow pressured this woman to not continue to press charges against Governor Patterson's aide. David Johnson is 6'7", and apparently he choked his girlfriend and stripped her of her clothes and smashed her head against the mirror, and she's had multiple restraining orders against him. And reports say she got a call from the governor's office And the night before her hearing on February 8th, she just didn't show up, and the case was dismissed. The governor admits he called her, but he says he was calling her to ask her how she was doing. So the governor is finally succumbed, and he is not running. He claims it's because he can't do his job as governor and run a campaign as well. On more national news, I don't know if any of you watched the healthcare summit, the big healthcare summit. There's nothing like sitting around and watching politicians talk for 7 hours, big, wide, open-mouthed yawn. An interesting fact that came out, some GOP aides kept a little what they called a talk clock. They claim that Obama spoke for 119 minutes, and the Democrats spoke for 114 minutes. The Republicans spoke for 110 minutes, so therefore the president and his supporters got a 233 minutes, while the GOP got that 110. The president got a little snippy when someone mentioned that they were running too long because of some of his opening comments, and he said, yes, that's because I'm the president. Things got a little snippy there. The UK Times Online has a reporter named Chris Ayres who said that C-SPAN should have aired one of those running banners along the bottom of the screen during the summit that says this, quote, watching American politicians argue about health care can be seriously damaging to your health. Warning, symptoms may include migraines, extreme fatigue, and sudden violent urges. In the event of exposure to competing statistics regarding donut holes, HMO deductibles, reconciliation devices, or such like, seek immediate medical help. So even the UK is yawning at this whole healthcare summit. Also, just a few moments before the summit, Vice President Biden was heard chatting with someone kind of casually, and they caught him saying it's easy being vice president. He says you don't have to do anything. And whoever he was talking to said it's like you're the grandparent and not the parent. And Vice President Grandpa Joe Biden said, yeah, that's it. So if Vice President Biden is the grandparent, I'm assuming that Obama is the parent. Although in France, they call him the king. Back in February 14th, Valentine's Day weekend, they had their big carnival in Nice. And the theme of the carnival was ecology and saving the planet. And the beginning of the parade was this giant float of President Obama. So picture this down Main Street, Nice, France, this big floating President Obama, and he says he's got this speaking balloon coming out of him that says, yes, we can be ecologists, and the theme was King of the Blue Planet. So even though our president has horrible poll numbers here, they still love him in Europe. By the way, we are live here this morning at 1480 WLEA, and new feature, you can listen to the show's live stream. Just go to www.wlea.net and look for the broadcast button and click on live broadcast, and you can click on the player and listen to the show. You can call up as well if you have any questions or comments. I'm wondering if anyone from the Organizing for America, that's the DNC, formerly Obama for America, they sent out a big email newsletter to all their people urging them to start calling up talk radio stations. They said that the fate of healthcare reform has been a focus of debate in living rooms, offices, on TV, online, and on talk radio. Since millions of people turn to radio as a trusted source of news and opinions, we need to make sure that OFA supporters are calling in with a pro-reform message. And also in that email and on the website, you can get hints as to what to say, how to ask it, and some little talking points for you to call in. Because as you know, us Americans, whether we have a D or an R after our name, are too stupid to come up with concrete arguments. So they need to teach us how to do that. In other national news, the NRA Online is promoting a Second Amendment victory. On February 22nd, the House passed a law that had been previously passed by the Senate that firearms will be allowed into public parks. That law, you used to have a law where that was prohibited for many years, and of course all national, local, state laws regarding possession of firearms have to apply. If you don't have a New York State pistol permit, you cannot walk in to Letchworth with a gun. You have to go through the normal process. So that definitely is a victory for Second Amendment supporters. Now, I guess for Stony Brook, I won't be able to go swimming at Stony Brook anymore, but I can pack my pistol if I'd like.